received criticism about the arsenic in apple juice controversy. How are you responding to those critics?
The FDA has been critical of the reports that we put out yesterday on my show, arguing that we have elevated levels of arsenic in some apple juice samples that we studied. We were not the first group to report this. In fact, we did our nationwide survey only after we read 3 other reports of that nature. So I understand that the FDA is upset. I also appreciate that I think it's my obligation to my viewers to share concerns when I have them, as I would with my family. I believe the FDA ought to have a level of arsenic that means it's safe. Just put a number there. And that number probably ought to be the number that's in our drinking water. Why would I want more arsenic in my apple juice than there is existing in my drinking water, especially if I'm paying for it? So this is a conversation I've been trying to have. I had difficulty engaging the different parties. The apple juice companies wouldn't come on. Their trade organization wouldn't come on my show. The FDA wouldn't come on my show. When I asked the FDA how they determined what the safe amount of arsenic in apple juice was in order to help make the study more accurate, they told me to file a Freedom of Information Act document. So I think at least now we're on the radar screen for folks, and we can begin to bring some clarity to this issue. We don't have to all get along on this. It's not about consensus in this case. It's about clarity. That way we're giving you, because you have a right as the American public to know what we're thinking and what we're researching, we're giving you the information you need to make decisions. And the reason I'm concerned about this is that the apple supply has changed for our apple juice. 60% of the apples that we use now in our apple juice come from overseas. We've been so fastidious, so meticulous in this country, limiting the amount of arsenic, for example, used in apples because we don't allow it to be used in pesticides anymore. And so the arsenic in our apples is as much as it used to be. And that's been true for 20 years. Where overseas, they still use arsenic-based pesticides as far as we can tell. And so it's not surprising that you may have a batch here and there that slips into this country that has higher than acceptable numbers. And I'm concerned not short term. I'm not worried about kids today. So moms, please listen to me. I don't want you to stop using apple juice. I love the stuff. I've been talking about it on my show and bragging about how great it is. But I'm concerned about long-term implications to our nerves, to our heart, and even to cancer rates. If we have elevated levels of arsenic in apple juice, it's a beverage that's used so commonly, not just by kids, but by adults.
So why did it take so long for this conversation to come to the front?
I have been trying to find out why it took so long for the conversation around arsenic in apple juice to take place. We even called the researchers who did the first landmark study 2 years ago demonstrating that levels of inorganic arsenic as well as organic arsenic were high in apple juice. And the author of the report said, well, no one ever called me. So I can see there's a lot of things that have to be evaluated as we try to make the country safer for our families. But this is a topic that I think ought to be discussed, and this is a good time to do it.
And so Dr. Besser and the FDA, they're calling it the study irresponsible. They're calling your findings faulty. Do you still stand by your findings?
I still stand by my findings, and I appreciate that the FDA has said that we're irresponsible, and I've been attacked by others in the media over this. But we did our homework. I ran these studies carefully the first time. When the FDA 5 days ago brought concerns to us. Again, we had been asking them for a month to get involved, but 5 days ago, after we'd already made the show and was ready to go on air, when they came to us and said that we're irresponsible, we rechecked our numbers. And then they came to us and said, your numbers are wrong. And then we brought a different group in to send different samples and had the laboratory run those as well. And the lab that we're using is one that does commercial work that's submitted to the FDA all the time. And all 3 of the studies that we did corroborated what we had heard from other groups who had done similar assessments. So the big story here is that there's not clarity on whether or not the arsenic levels are dangerous or not. I think we ought to understand that, and then we need to pick a number. The companies told us they're following the law. They are, because there is no law about the amount of arsenic that should be in apple juice that I'm aware of. Let's set that number. I argue there should be similar to what we allow in drinking water and bottled water, and then we can move on. People can follow the rules then.
So parents across the nation are at odds about what they should do. Trusting the FDA, hearing from Dr. Oz, where do they go from here?
I don't want to alarm patients unnecessarily. I don't want to alarm parents unnecessarily. The apple juice that you're giving your kids today, keep giving it to them. I'm not worried about that. There have been no reports of injury to kids short term from this, and the levels aren't high enough that we would ever expect that. I'm much more concerned about what happens over the next generation of kids with long-term exposure to arsenic levels that might be rising because the source of our apples has become international and moved away from a place that we have made it safe.